Hello, this is Curtis with Pragmatic Agile, and I'd like to help you reduce the suck. At some point in your career, you're likely to be asked to try and measure your team and their performance. It shouldn't surprise you that at some point, someone's going to try and measure you as a Scrum Master or as a product owner for your performance. Question is, how should that be done? Can it be done objectively, or is it always subjective, and is it fair? I'm going to review a proposed method for measuring Scrum Master performance that I saw on LinkedIn and why I don't think it's a good idea. Okay, so we're back. Here we go. Like I said, I think it's okay to try and measure things if that is productive, if it's beneficial, if it's fair, and if it's accurate. Simple rule. Okay, so let's take a look at this idea and see what we think about it. So we are going to briefly review Tsang's proposal. We'll respond about the positives of each one of the proposals, and we'll also identify potential issues and risks with each one. I'd like to compare it to an existing model and talk about what we think is better, and then should we propose something else. So this is Gary Tsang. Again, he has a YouTube channel. He's got some good content. Here's his post. Best metrics to measure performance of a Scrum Master. You're going to notice that there are a lot of people on LinkedIn who throw things out there because what they're trying to do is elicit responses. Then they gather that information. They're essentially crowdsourcing for ideas. I don't mind helping out. I really don't. I'd much rather provide some guidance and some suggestions, some of my humble opinion, so that they at least consider those ideas and maybe it makes it better before they try and push it out on the community. All right, so here's his first one. Psychological safety. Do team members feel that they won't be punished for speaking up? Is there a culture of open dialogue and feedback? Now, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of the Scrum Master who's working on this team. On the one hand, you may say, well, this seems kind of fair. I like the idea that the team has some psychological safety. And by that, by the way, because there's other coaches who said, I don't like that phrase because blah, blah, blah. Look, it's a reality. People should feel safe to speak up. Psychological safety is just a term that describes that. Does it mean your team is weak? Well, I don't think so. I have seen team members who were wonderful, intelligent, strong-willed people who were beat down by individuals who were rude, sexist, whatever. So I don't think it's an unfair thing, to say, do people feel safe to share their opinion? So let's just move on and let's not quibble over the term. Do they feel safe for speaking up? Is there a culture of open dialogue and feedback? Okay, I think that in some way, this is a nice thing to look for. But let me ask you this straight up. How much influence does the Scrum Master have over this aspect? We're going to come back to this. We'll deep dive here in a minute. Let's go to slide number 2. Team morale. I like this one too. There's a nice aspect to this. How do we measure team morale? Is the team motivated? Are they satisfied, he says? Are they enthusiastic about their tasks and goals? Is that really the responsibility of the Scrum Master? Would I score Scrum Master performance based upon whether or not they're motivated or they're demotivated, or if they're satisfied and they like the type of work they're doing? Is that really up to the Scrum Master? Trust within the team. Well, we would like there to be trust within the team. How deep is the trust? How do you measure how deep trust is? What is the scale or the measure? How do you do that? Do they trust the Scrum Master's guidance and decisions? Well, that is a question that you could actually survey and find out a result. But how do you measure the depth of, on a scale of 1 to 10, how deep is your trust? And isn't that kind of subjective? Wouldn't that depend upon the day of the week, the time of the month? I mean, come on. So you can see where I'm coming. Yeah, it's nice to measure, but I don't know that I would say that this is a Scrum Master measure. The next one, transparency in work. This gets back to the Scrum Guide and one of the Scrum values, transparency, all right, which is really important. Are all of the task goals and concerns visible and clear? I like it, but what if the team doesn't want to do tasks? What if they use stories, but they don't want to use tasks and they reject it? So does the Scrum Master get a lower score for not forcing them to do it? And if so, Does this drive the Scrum Master to begin to impose certain behaviors simply because he or she fears the subjective assessment of his or her performance that comes from this evaluation? See, this could drive anti-patterns, couldn't it? Now, is there hidden work or are there hidden impediments? That one's a very good one. However, if there's hidden work, it's probably hidden from the Scrum Master. I don't know that I would say that the Scrum Master has failed, because hidden work by its nature is something that's going on that people are not aware of. It can't be hidden without it being obscured. At some point, it will become more obvious, and the Scrum Master can do things to try and reveal these things. But I wouldn't say that it was a Scrum Master failure if there's a developer over here who's doing some secret work for the CEO and he's not reporting it. Is that the Scrum Master's responsibility and accountability? Why not the other team members? They didn't notice that Bob over here didn't seem to be delivering work at the same pace that everyone else did. They just trusted when he said, yeah, I'm just really busy, I'm doing this, but he never mentioned the fact that he's doing work outside the sprint. It's a good thing to know. But should we put all the accountability only on the Scrum Master when the team actually has a lot to do with that? In fact, Bob, the developer, really is the one who's letting the team down, not Lucy, the Scrum Master. Inspection and adaptation cycle. Now, this one's a good one. Does the team consistently experiment and learn? Is that a behavior that the Scrum Master can enforce? Can the Scrum Master actually ensure that they're performing experiments? See, I would say, are they identifying learning opportunities or improvement opportunities and taking action on it? And the second bullet there, are improvements being made based on feedback? There you go. But that doesn't tell you whether or not it's effectively or not. And does that have anything to do with the Scrum Master, or is it really the team? Now, I will tell you that I do see where there are Scrum Masters who perform the retrospective and then let them leave without, they inspect and forget. They come up with, this is what's wrong. And then there's never any plan of this is how we plan to do it. So perhaps you could just reword this to say something to the effect of, does the team hold regular retrospectives, identify improvement opportunities, and take action? But again, that's sort of the Scrum Master setting up for the possibility of this happening and then enabling them to do it. But the team is really responsible for that. So I'm a little uncomfortable with holding the Scrum Master accountable. How about this one then? Customer satisfaction. Is the software delivered valuable to customers? Where's the product owner in that? What if the product owner is telling the team, these are the goals and this is the functionality that we want to develop, but it isn't actually satisfying the customer? How do we make the Scrum Master accountable for this? Is the delivery consistent and timely? Again, how much power does the Scrum Master have to make sure that delivery is consistent and timely? Now, the Scrum Master can and should be using metrics to help guide the team to become stable and predictable, but because the Scrum Master doesn't have any authority, they only have persuasion skills, you may provide them with guidance about this is what we should be doing to be more predictable and stable, but you may have the team reject those suggestions. I've seen Scrum Masters struggle for 6, 7, 8 sprints to try and get the teams to learn to slice their stories vertically and smaller, or to swarm the stories so that they reduce the duration so that they become more predictable. But again, I would never have said that it was a Scrum Master failure unless they just didn't even try. A lot of times it has to do with the team. And I've seen dev leads on teams reject suggestions about slicing smaller, swarming the stories. Without authority, if you have resistance within the team, how can I hold the Scrum Master accountable for that resistance? Be very careful what you choose to measure and how you choose to hold someone accountable. Self-management. Is the team able to decide what to build, how to build it, who builds it, and when to build it? This one seems pretty good, with the caveat that, remember that dev lead I told you about? If the dev lead has a bad behavior of assigning work to people, and let's suppose that dev lead reports to a different manager and the Scrum Master says, guys, we should enable the team to determine what they want to work on. If he says, no, I'm the manager of these developers. As the dev lead, they report to me. I'll make that decision. The best you can do is to try and begin to socialize through the organization why that's a bad pattern. But the Scrum Master has no authority to force that change. So it could take months for them to outgrow that behavior. So if we run this performance evaluation on the Scrum Master, in the meantime, how do we score this person because there's an anti-pattern on the team that has not yet been eliminated, even though it has been socialized and explained by the Scrum Master. So shall I hold that Scrum Master accountable for these anti-patterns? On stakeholder feedback and expectations, beyond Scrum practices, are stakeholders' expectations met? Oh, for Pete's sake. Beyond Scrum, how does the Scrum Master have any authority over that? Let's suppose that what we're talking about is that the software is being created, but there's a bunch of other marketing materials or other supporting documents that need to be created. And there's a supporting team, a training team that does that. How can I hold the Scrum Master accountable for things that actually happen outside the team? Beyond Scrum. For Pete's sake, the Scrum Master has zero influence on those areas. They have no control over marketing or sales. Have you ever seen sales promise deliveries of vaporware, non-existing software, to customers without even including the team? This happens in many instances. And the Scrum Master can report it and try to change it, but he has very little control over that. So how can I hold them accountable for that? Is there alignment on the definition of success? Oh, for Pete's sake. That's between the stakeholder and the product owner. The Scrum Master can report on it and guide them and say, we need to get better alignment. But if the product owner and the stakeholders cannot align, how do you expect the Scrum Master to solve that problem? The best he or she can do is to observe it, to document it, to report it, and to ask for assistance. If the product owner and the stakeholders aren't willing to receive any kind of coaching from the Scrum Master, his or her hands are tied, aren't they? Nothing I can do about it. How can I, as a manager, hold that Scrum Master accountable because the product owner sucks? Come on, don't try and subject Scrum Masters to this type of metric. Value inequality and contributions. Oh, is every team member's input valued equally? Now, this is something that you can do. Make sure that you give everybody a chance to speak and that everybody listens with respect. Okay, is there mutual respect for everyone's role and contribution? But what happens if one of the people on the team doesn't really contribute effectively? Is it the Scrum Master's responsibility to make everybody appreciate the fact that George over here does nothing but complain or writes really bad code or creates defects or whatever it is? It's not his responsibility to make everyone respect his contribution if his contribution is a mess. There's another aspect to this. What if there are people who don't like to speak up in public? They just remain quiet. Am I going to hold the Scrum Master accountable? You need to force Lakshmi to speak up in the meetings. Well, Lakshmi's kind of shy. She doesn't like to speak up in meetings. She'll answer direct questions, but she doesn't pontificate and opine. And I shouldn't be forcing her to do that. That's correct. You should not. But they should feel safe to do it. But again, what if the reason why they don't feel safe is because George over there is kind of a jerk? Again, you can report that, go to the manager, try to let people be aware that this is an issue on the team. Maybe it becomes an HR issue, but how much accountability should I have on the Scrum Master to fix that? Guys, I've seen where we have, and I've been involved in this situation, where we had requested for the Scrum Masters to get involved in a conflict resolution process with human resources. And so they went through this convoluted conflict resolution process. They went through multiple steps to document the conflict, the event, the participants, gather input from the team, verify that expectations were clearly communicated, document the findings, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. And in the end, you know what happened? It created a division because now the Scrum Master was getting involved. And there were steps when it finally got hot enough, they got HR in there. So now that people felt betrayed because the Scrum Master had reported it and it went to the manager and the manager got HR involved. And you know what they did? Nothing. So they forced the Scrum Master to get involved in this situation. And then they left them swinging in the wind. You're expecting me to hold the Scrum Master accountable for the failure of the managers and human resources and others to take action on the behavior that they had encouraged them to take? Not in a million years. Won't do it. All right, so really briefly, here's the way I'm looking at this. If you're going to start doing any kind of a measurement, let's ask ourselves some questions first before we try and propose any kind of a Scrum Master performance measure. As the Scrum Master, what questions would they ask? Is it fair to me? Is success within my control? Who is going to measure my performance? The team? Or is it me? Or is it somebody not even on the team? Is this tied to my bonus and my raise? Who decided which skills were the most important? Because if you notice the proposal here, this is not tied back to the Scrum Guide, is it? None of those things are associated with the Scrum Master definition within the Scrum Guide. And they might ask finally, what if I have skills not included? You're not getting any bonus points for other skills that weren't included in that 7-bullet performance evaluation. Now, as a manager of Scrum Masters, I'm going to ask a few other questions. Is this a fair measure? Do I feel comfortable measuring a Scrum Master based upon these performance evaluations? Is it really measuring the Scrum Master, or would I be judging the Scrum Master for team behaviors? Does it really measure the Scrum Master, or am I judging them based on the sick culture of the organization we work in? How exactly would we measure this? And how do we use this to improve? Should this tie into bonuses and raises? Should I actually be penalizing them potentially? Financially, based upon team behaviors or the culture? How does this influence the team's success? And by the way, as a manager, am I next? Am I going to be held responsible and accountable for behaviors on the team over which I have no control? Should I be punished financially for behaviors of upper management and leadership? God forbid. So you got to be really, really careful. Think about the impact on the Scrum Master. Remember, metrics can be weaponized. Think about what they do with velocity and predictability, cycle time, throughput, how leadership can often weaponize those metrics. Well, be prepared if you're going to provide any sort of Scrum Master maturity matrix like that. You better damn well make sure that it's not weaponized. Are there already existing maturity matrices available? And there is, by a very well-known organization called the Agility Health Radar. And here's an example, okay? What they do is they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major categories. Planning. How well is planning executed on the team? You look at the backlog refinement, planning at scale, okay? That would be like Scrum of Scrums, planning across teams, all right? Sprint planning, metrics and reporting. What about the execution? Well, here they have daily Scrum, impediments, subject matter expertise, value delivery, measure and grow. And by the way, they do have, if you take the certification, they explain what it is that they're measuring here. Your leadership qualities. Do you protect the team from disruptions, positive encouragement, enable autonomy, effective facilitators, self-organizing teams? There's coaching skills, relationship builder, effective communicator, teacher and coach, good listener, healthy culture. And then, of course, you have your foundational skills. Have you established team norms? Are there roles and expectations, team structure, and agile values? The nice thing about this approach is that an individual, doesn't have to be the Scrum Master, it could be the product owner, could actually ask a series of questions that comes with this, and they're able to score their Scrum Master and show them where they're strong and where they're weak so that they can focus on those new skills. You could also have Scrum Master A walk the team through it for Scrum Master B over here. So you could have Scrum Masters team up and say, I'll score your teams, you score your, all right. And you're allowing the teams to give feedback. That would be a fair way to do it. And to some extent, this is really related to how well things are working on the team over which the Scrum Master has some control, right? How effective is the daily Scrum? They have some control over that, but the team is also involved. So guess what? You probably should use any type of maturity matrix or performance matrix only as a guide for where do I make improvements. As a manager, we used something similar to this, and then we identified places where they wanted to work, and they created an objective for themselves and said, I plan to do several exercises to get better at facilitating sprint planning or better retrospectives. And then they would document the steps they took, and that's how they met their objectives for the year. I didn't get into very subjective measurements of them because it's unfair to do that. And I would suggest that if you're going to go out and look at ways of creating performance measurements, I would change my thinking a little bit more to maturity and guidance on finding improvement opportunities, taking steps to achieve those, and documenting, this is where I was a little bit weak. These are the steps I took. I accomplished those things. Next, I'm going to pick up this other area. There you go. Those are my thoughts. Let me know if you disagree. Thank you. Bye.